Tomorrow is a busy day. We got things to do. We got eggs to lay. We got ground to dig and worms to scratch. It takes a lot of satin getting chicks to hatch. A cluck, 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 cluck. One night, Farmer Brown was taking the air. He locked up the barnyard with the greatest of care. Down in the hen house, something stirred. When he shouted, "Who's there?" This is what he heard. Cluck, 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 cluck. There ain't nobody here but us chickens. There ain't nobody here at all. So calm yourself and stop that fuss. There ain't nobody here but us. We chickens trying to sleep. Then you bust in and hobble, 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 hobble with your chin. There ain't nobody here but us chickens.
All right.
There ain't nobody here at all.
Ain't nobody here but us chickens. Welcome to another Ask or Tell Me Anything show. It's where you call 888-720-WNPR. Or if you are not into the alphanumeric thing, 888-720-9677. And you may ask or tell me anything. Okay. And I have to say, I have an announcement to make, which is, some of you know, if you're familiar with this kind of episode, we have something available called the Mr. Carp envelopes. These are provided to us by, oddly enough, Mr. Carp. But lately, and the rule is, so they are stuffed full of clippings. I have not seen these clippings. I have not opened these envelopes. The rule has been that it requires a phone call from you for the envelopes to be opened. But that hasn't happened for a while. So the envelopes are backing up. Mr. Carp has now said that he is petitioning the court for a special master to examine the bag of envelopes that I have. And he may be invoking executive privilege or claiming reputational damage. So I feel that we have to sort of kind of oil up the machinery that gets us to open these envelopes. I feel like I should open at least one of them today. So it will no longer require a phone call from you. But if anybody uses any of the following words in their call, I will open a Mr. Carp envelope. Okay, the words are purple, puppet, platypus, and pineapple. All right? If any of those words are used, I like how I just sort of make up these rules sitting here, They seem planned. All right. Anyway, that's the plan with that. All right. So I think that's all that we really need to cover right now. And let's begin with Mary of Kent. I believe Mary of Kent is a character in King Lear, right? The wife of the Earl of Kent.
I don't know.
Yes, I know. I believe you stay loyal to Lear and you impersonate peasants so that he won't banish you.
All I have to say is purple platypus puppet.
All right, we're going to open a Mr. Carp envelope. But why don't you get to say your thing first, and then whatever that is. And then I'll open up a Mr. Carp envelope.
So whenever I hear excessive commercials, I think of the old series Creature Feature, and I keep on saying to myself, creeping commercials, because more and more commercials keep on creeping into NPR. And every time I turn it on, I have to listen to the same commercial over and over and over again every time I turn on.
I'm sure the people up on the 5th and 6th floors of this building would like me to point out that we don't really have commercials. We may have funder credits or funding credits, or I don't know. I never go to the meetings, so I don't know. But it's something like that. We don't have commercials, right?
Okay. Well, it's a continuous onslaught of every time I turn on the NPR, I hear something, I don't know what the word is to use besides advertising.
Try underwriter promos. Try saying that. Underwriter promos.
Underwriter promos.
There you go. See? It feels good to say it, right?
They're incessant, repetitive, and annoying.
I'm sorry they're annoying. One thing I will say is that prior to coming here, I worked for 16 years in commercial radio. Believe me, you have no idea what incessant...
I know how much worse it is. I'm a very happy monthly contributor, sustaining contributor, I think is what my label is, which I happily pay for. But I don't know, even if you just mix them up a little bit.
All right, so better under, maybe under, yes.
Pink flamingos is
right.
just like, oh, please, not
okay.
again.
Well, that's just a commercial for us. That's not even we're not getting any money for the flamingos.
At least mix them up.
Yeah.
You know?
By the way,
new ones.
I'm going to say something. I may get in trouble for this. I agree with you. I've heard the damn flamingo thing. But that is a promo for something that's appearing on public television. So it's not like that's all one big company. We're not getting any money to run that thing. We're just trying to get you interested, or some kid interested in watching that show. But I 100% agree. I'm tired of hearing about the pink flamingos. I get it. They eat the shrimp. It turns them pink. I didn't believe it at first. I had to look it up.
Different ones and then mix them up.
Okay. You and I are on the same page. You got to mix them up. You got to vary them a little bit. That's actually one of the reasons we wrote and produced a whole bunch of new promos for this show, because we realized the old ones were getting kind of boring. So I would agree with that.
I like the ones for your show. And there was the one recently where a lady does one for your show, and it is entertaining.
It's probably Kat Pastor.
I think so.
She's very entertaining.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And she has a good voice. I like her voice.
Yeah, we all do. All right. So I hear you. I feel your pain. But it's not commercials. Don't say commercials anymore. So because some of these things are just promos for other stuff within this company. Sometimes we have to give like a funding credit or something like that. You know.
Yeah. Then there's the one for something or other dental.
Okay, that's not actually. I do practice a little dentistry on site here, but I don't think that's what they're talking about. And what I would do is just routine cavities and stuff like that. I don't do root canals or any of the other stuff. I went to a school in Central America where we never got to that. There was the guy who was going to teach root canals, and he was killed and eaten by a jaguar. So I never learned how to do the other stuff. Anyway, I hear you. I know there's maybe more underwriter credits than you like. And then there's the flamingos. I'm sick of the flamingos. I'm 100% with you on the flamingos. But okay, now because of that, I have to open. I'm sorry, I know there's like a lot of people who've called in, but I'm opening a Mr. Carp envelope anyway. I can't guarantee that I will be able to speak intelligibly about this. Okay, this says Immaculate Conception, the Empress and the English Doctor. All right, that's going to take too long to figure out what it is. I'm throwing that one aside, just because it's a little inscrutable. This one might be. This one is about a book review of a. We're not going to do this one either. No, too hard. All right, I'm down to the last one. This isn't going well. This isn't my idea of something going well. Patriotism, energy, and optimism, says this clip. This year marks the 125th anniversary of John Philip Sousa's triumphant The Stars and Stripes Forever, the finest and most famous American march. Is that really true? Is it really the finest and most? It might be the most famous, but is it the finest American march? I have a good story about that, but probably no time to tell it. It helps cement his reputation as the nation's first musical superstar. This is all about John Philip Sousa, which is an interesting topic. I just want to say one thing about that, okay? I will say one thing about that when we go to the calls. So there used to be this thing, if you were a political reporter, if you were like covering the state capitol, which I was as a young man, where once a year the governor would go to inspect the National Guard units at Fort Drum, which is in upstate New York. And a member of the press, a Hartford Courant reporter, which I was at the time, was required that someone travel with the governor just to see what happened. And hilarious complications would often ensue. So the governor happened to be Ella Grasso. That's how old I am. I was a young reporter, and I was sent up to Fort Drum with Governor Grasso, who was mad at me that particular day about something that had been in the paper. I don't remember what. So I don't think she spoke to me the entire day, including the fact that we were riding around in helicopters. There's like not that many different places to sit in an Army helicopter. So I don't think she spoke to me all day. And there are a lot of funny things happened. But the funniest thing was there was a band up there, an Army band, a military band, where I'm pretty sure the person had a sense of humor, the person running it. Because as we got off the plane, the plane lands on the landing strip, and the stairs come down, and we walk down. The governor's walking down, and the band's out there, and it's playing da 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 da, which I know is a legitimate march. I don't know if it's a Sousa march. I know it's a legitimate march, but it's also the theme song to Monty Python, and that's how most people know it. And later on, as we entered this big reception at the end of the day, the governor entered, the band started playing a military march-style version of Jesus Christ Superstar. And I thought, there's somebody funny running this band. I mean, so there's somebody with a real sense of humor. All right, that's all. We've opened a Mr. Carp envelope. I believe we've warded off any kind of legal problems. Let's go to Mark in Wyndham. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Colin. How are you? The reason I'm calling is because in March of 2020, when COVID was hitting and getting very serious, and we went into lockdown, and my ski season was cut short, I was in the house for about 3 days, and it did not take long before I started going stir crazy and needing to get outside. So I went outside and I started hiking one day, and the next day I went a little bit further and a little bit further. And what I found out was that there are a plethora of trails and trail systems in Connecticut that I had no idea existed. And besides just the state parks, there's land trusts and there are preserves. And I live in eastern Connecticut, and I found out that there are some excellent and beautiful places in our part of Connecticut to go hiking at. And after hiking for about 3 months, I set a goal for myself of hiking Mount Washington. So
wow.
At the age of 62, I hiked Mount Washington in that summer in August. But what I found out is that there's a whole bunch of what I also realized, there were a lot of people that were doing the same thing
yes.
I was doing.
Yeah, well, I noticed the same thing. So I'm a pretty regular hiker, dog walker. I'm no longer, for various reasons, doing, I'm not a candidate for Mount Washington, but I've been hiking all over the state for a lot of years. And it was really funny, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, sort of starting sometime around March of 2020 and then continuing, all the way probably to the following winter, there were, you couldn't get a parking space in some of these places that I used to hike routinely and not see another human being. There would actually be parking problems and traffic jams to get into the parking lot of a hiking area. So that was a good thing. It's a good problem to have. But you're absolutely right. A lot of people did it.
And the other thing I didn't realize is that there are apps out there that can track your trails and tell you exactly where you are. And there are Facebook groups of hikers that are going. One Facebook group I'm in is Connecticut Hikers and Outdoor Adventures. And there are hundreds of people in that one Facebook group. So I think it would be a great idea for a show to just go over the different parts of hiking in Connecticut because we have a beautiful state.
All right. Yes. Actually, I totally agree with you. First of all, I use an app called NML, which tells me what the nearest mountain lion to me is. So I recommend getting that. But also, earlier on in our show, we actually did our show from a hiking trail, which was not technologically a terribly easy thing to do. But we went out to a hiking trail. I forget where it was. It was like in Portland or someplace. And we did the show entirely from there. But yes, I support all of this. Except that I would never join a group of hikers. My entire goal is to get as far away from human beings as I possibly can. So, not generally in life, but when I'm hiking. So I would never do that. But other than that, all right, let's move along here. Oh, it's Dave. It's Dave in Lake Como, Ohio /Italy. Dave, good to hear you. Good to see you up the board there.
Colin, thanks for taking my call. I hope you're well.
I'm fine.
I was thinking of calling about the Antarctic ice shelf and what that means for the Connecticut coast, but it was so depressing. I figured how about grammatical pet peeves installment number 19 instead?
All right. And then, yes, because right up to the time that we all drowned, or what, we should be using good grammar. So it all fits together.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, this one just really bothers me, and it seems to be the special province of the local newscaster, not just in Connecticut, it's everywhere. A report begins with a phrase like, a Sunday afternoon at a Wisconsin shopping mall turns deadly. And I think they're always saying deadly when they mean fatal. I mean, if somebody gets into that shopping mall with, like 2 grenades with the pins pulled and they're holding them, that's deadly because that's capability. If they let those grenades go in a crowd, obviously that has fatal results. Is this an antiquated distinction, or does anybody else notice this? It really bugs me.
Yeah, I think that one's probably a lost battle. I think of Peter Sokolowski of Merriam-Webster, who is our kind of go-to guy about stuff like this. We're here, and he's kind of more descriptive than prescriptive as a lexicographer. He would probably say, "Oh no, well that's just people. That's now an idiom. People just say it. You are fighting a battle that was over."
Well, as you know, I specialize in those lost grammatical battles.
There you go. So you do you. All right. So. All right. There's okay, I'm going to take 1 or 2 more calls and then we'll go to a break. Here is Linda in Simsbury. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Colin. I'm 3 years into Connecticut, and you are one of my favorite things in Connecticut. Thank you.
Well, you are one of my favorite things in Connecticut. So there.
Oh, great. So I cannot get out of my head the ideas behind circular economy, building in the prices of removal or replacement into products. And I also can't get over that we really need big changes and soon regarding climate change or, saving us and the planet. So the other day, a friend of mine was saying that it came to some local town's council that they needed to add another pickup for recycling, like another day of pickups, because there's so much more recycled material in their pails that they're overflowing, and how much that would cost. And then it was considered, how about adding 2 pails to the subscription to accommodate people who have more, blah, blah. And I was thinking, how about getting people... Wouldn't it be an introduction to the big idea of circular economy to have, say, Amazon have to take back their stuff, their packaging?
Right. Well, I mean, the way you would do that, first of all, I think it's a really good idea. Second of all, the way that you would typically do this is that you would do what we do with the bottle bill, right? You would charge a deposit.
No, it shouldn't be at the consumer level. That's the problem.
Right. But I mean, you could force them to take the stuff back anyway by creating a financial incentive.
Right.
And you could charge the deposit on their end. I mean, I'm just talking out of my butt right now. Who knows? But I'm just back of envelope, as they say. Why could you charge it on their end? There could be some way in which they're held liable for a box that they don't. So you want the company to take it back. Now, the question that I would also have, and here we would need someone like Mike Payne to tell us, is that the most efficient way to deal with these boxes? So in other words, the good news about the system that we have now, if there is any good news, is that, so you're sitting there in Simsbury and you get some boxes. And so on one day of the week or possibly 2 days of the week, depending on how they work it out, a truck shows up from Payne's or wherever and takes it to a nearby location where there's single stream recycling. So it all gets sorted out and everything, and they figure out what to do with these boxes. Now, the question would be, is it more efficient, particularly in the amount of fuel that would be used to have it go all the way back to wherever Amazon would want it to go? I realize Amazon's also pretty decentralized, and they've got buildings in this area too. Maybe it would be okay. But Payne's might argue, no, actually, we can handle this stuff better and probably more fuel efficiently and with a lower carbon footprint than anybody else because we're already doing it. But I don't know. I'm just sort of saying. I'm just, I don't mean to poke holes in your idea, because I think it's a good idea because I mean, one thing about Amazon is that they will occasionally say, well, you just ordered 3 things. We can deliver them on different days, or we could all deliver them all on one day in one box and one trip up your driveway. And almost nobody ever selects that because they want things as soon as they can get them. But I think Amazon should just decide to do that, because there's 2 kinds of boxes, right? One of them, if you buy a 55-inch Samsung television, it's going to be in a box, and it was always going to be in a box. But then there are all these boxes that are kind of added to the process, boxes that contain other packages of smaller things. And that's kind of Amazon's probably their cardinal sin there. So I agree that somehow or other we should address this. There's way too much of it. And I mean, there's this way, it's too easy too.
Yeah. And this is like an actual problem in an actual town that they're considering adding a second pickup to it, just this one town. Second pickup.
I totally believe that. I mean, honestly, my blue, we get big blue things where I live, and the recycle bin only gets picked up once every 2 weeks. But mine's, it just so happens this week it's already full, and there's a week to go. So I think we are all doing this, and we are all somewhat culpable in this too. We could order less stuff. We could insist that it not be delivered wastefully. I mean, it's all like totally legitimate. I'm not exactly sure that we have, between the two of us, figured out the solution. But I do know it's time to take a break. We'll come back. We got lots of interesting calls. Ask or tell me anything continues.
There was a moon and a street lamp. I didn't know I drank such a lot. Till I pissed a tequila and a corner the full length of the parking lot. Oh, I talk too loose. Again, I talk too open and free. I pay a high price for my open talking like you do for your silent mystery. Come and talk to me. Please talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me.
Wearing a raincoat is flying around in a plane made of a raincoat. But when you think of that, you hurt your mind, and you'll need a friend to talk you down. Needing a friend to talk you down is food that comes from a pie. But when you hate the food that comes from a pipe,
All right. That song is partly to irritate John Nankowski, but the other reason is, so I had this raincoat. I don't know. The people really want to get on the air. Oh, Aaron hung up. Darn it. People want to get on the air, but I had this raincoat, and there are people. I'm not going to say who they are. I'm not going to name names. There are people who've been reorganizing the house where I live, and this has been going on for quite a while. And at one point, my raincoat, which I'm very fond of, was reorganized out of existence. And this is the part that bothers me. I had to convince the same people that I had ever owned such a raincoat. And I could tell that I was doubted. People were saying, well, maybe you never had a raincoat like that. And I said, no, I probably have pictures of myself, and I definitely had this raincoat. And so a year, more than a year went by. And occasionally I would mention the raincoat. And then there was eye rolling. Yes, he's talking about the raincoat again. And then several days ago, they found that raincoat. They found that raincoat. It's not a very big house. I just want to say it's a converted garage. So it's not a very big house. And my raincoat was able to hide from the authorities in that house for, I'm going to say, 14 months. So I'm very excited to be reunited on this rainy day with my raincoat. All right, here we go. We've got lots of questions and comments and things like that. So, I mean, what is there to do, really, but just take them all. Here's Elizabeth in Middletown. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Colin. Well, I hope my question doesn't add to your self-doubt in the way that the missing raincoat did. because I love your show. I think you're the smartest person on radio. And it's the contrast between the intelligence of your show and the tenor of the ads that you all have recently recorded for your show. If I were listening to NPR or WNPR for the first time and I heard those ads, I would say, I'm not going to listen to that. And I'd say this with love, Colin. Maybe I have to say it if someday you'll thank me, but it's just, I feel it's just not representative of your show, which is funny, but not kind of wacky. So I'm wondering, well, of course, I want to hear your response, but did you focus group those or what?
Do we seem like the kind of people who would focus group our promos?
Evidently not.
No, we just wanted to do kind of a new bunch of promos that sounded kind of different. I wrote them all.
Oops.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm not sensitive about it. I'm neither inclined to exalt them or to doubt them. It just, they're not going to be with us forever. We're going to have a whole other tranche of promos that are going to come out. But I think to the earlier call that we got from the people who were really person who's really tired of the flamingo promos, the whole goal ought to be, put them on, don't play them until people are tearing their hair out, then play something else, put something else on, use something different, make it a little, and I think also there's kind of a sameness to a lot of promos. Our idea was, well, let's do some promos that don't sound like everybody else's promos. So to the extent that we had any idea at all, which might be inflating things. So
but
don't worry.
Don't sound like your show.
Well,
that's my point.
Don't worry. They won't be around forever. And I don't think that they will deter anyone from listening to the show. And anyway, the person who called before about the flamingos said that she liked the promos, especially the ones that were being done by the nice young lady who I believe is Kat Pastor. So it's it's really it's tied at 1-1 right now on the new promos. All right. So okay, I should just go to the top and go right down, right? Unless there's something else that's really important that we should. No, I'll just go to the top. I'm dithering too much anyway. Here's Tom from Naugatuck. Hi, Tom. You have the floor.
Hey. Oh, here's the thing. I think you're a brilliant radio performer in Connecticut that you can't do that in other places. But Bob Steele did it, and my dad loved Jack Parr. My dad loved Bob Steele, and my dad loved Jack Parr. I just would wonder if you can connect those two.
I sort of can and can't. Let me try, though. So for people who don't know who Bob Steele for decades and decades and decades, was not only the most popular radio personality in Connecticut, he was, in terms of capturing percentage of market share, one of the two most popular radio personalities in America. The other one, I think, was out in Kansas City, in terms of what percentage of his own market he captured. Like Bob Steele, he was a morning radio host on WTIC AM, and he would get like 36% of the entire radio audience or something, and that might even be a bad book for Bob Steele. I don't really remember the numbers anymore, but they were just astronomical. He was just a bigger force as a radio personality. Now, his show was really... How to describe his show? Well, I'll put it this way. At WTIC, there was an account executive who used to do a kind of Bob Newhart style stand-up routine for his fellow account representatives and whoever else would listen, in which he tried to explain the Bob Steele show to an advertiser based in New York or L.A., and it would be okay, so he has a word of the day. Yeah, he tells people... how to pronounce a word, that you should say instead of air when it's E-R-R. No, people really, they love it. And he announces the birthdays of anybody over 80 years old. Yeah, that's really popular. So it was this very cornball kind of radio show. There was kind of an underlying intelligence to it, but you wouldn't notice it. I mean, the woman who has problems with our promo, the Bob Steele show would really be troubling to her. But it was an incredibly popular thing. Now, I consider Jack Parr to be in a completely different category. Now, for people who don't know that name, years and years ago, he was one of the original kind of late-night television hosts. And he was unusual in two or three ways. One of them was, I think he was more emotionally present than... I mean, you could watch David Letterman for decades, and genius though David Letterman was, you wouldn't really, I don't think, be getting to know David Letterman. But if you watched Jack Parr, you would be, because he used a lot of himself and his own emotions, and when he wasn't happy about things, he would like cry on the air and stuff. But the other thing that he did that I always liked was his guests were often people who didn't necessarily have a movie out, or they were just good talkers. They were people he enjoyed talking to. Oscar Levant was on all the time. Whether Oscar Levant had any products in the pipeline, it didn't really matter. He just was a good talker. There was this alleged singer named Genevieve or something. And I'm pretty sure nobody ever heard her sing. She was like a singer, but she was mainly on the Jack Parr show because he liked talking to her. And I always liked that idea. I'd rather have a host talk to somebody. I mean, The Nose is a little bit based on that. You know, the idea that you find people who are good talkers and then you worry later about what the subject matter is going to be. Whereas so much of late night television seems to be driven by, oh, well, here comes Celebrity X, and he brought a clip with him from the new thing he's doing. We're going to watch the clip. We're all going to, pretend that we care about all this. And so anyway, those are all of my thinkings about such things. All right, here we go. We're going to go elsewhere. Here's Howard in Manchester. Howard, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Colin. A couple of weeks ago, you had a show about rom-coms. Now, I didn't think I was very much of a rom-com fan, but I was amazed at how many of those selections that your panel was talking about that I had seen, and even went back afterwards and watched another one or two that was on the list. There's a rom-com, I guess I would classify it as such, that no one ever seems to mention, and I think is one of the best that it was ever made, and it's called People Will Talk. It's a 1951 movie with Cary Grant, Gene Crane. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't. I'm guessing this is McPants, the person who answered the phone. He knew right away what you're talking about. So I don't know that one. I'm not as good with movies pre-1960 as, for example, The Person I Live With. Much better at them. McNichol actually is also born at the wrong time or something. He loves all the movies from the 40s and 50s. So
I won't give away the plot of it. But there's a scene near the end that I think would rival the strawberry scene in Caine Mutiny.
Right. Also a great rom-com, by the way.
Well, to some maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But there's a whole Jose Ferrer, Fred McMurray thing that's going on. A lot of people don't pick it up in the movie, but believe me, it's there. All right. So People Will Talk. That's a great recommendation. I will make an effort to see People Will Talk. And then People Will Talk, presumably. All right. This is really good because we opened a Mr. Carp envelope and I found a clip about John Philip Sousa. And so now here's Joe from New Haven who would like to talk about John Philip Sousa. That's the way this show should work. All right. You have the floor, Joe.
Hi, Colin. Topic near and dear to my heart. I don't consider myself an expert, but I know some stuff. John Philip Sousa, one of his great modern-day supporters, is actually from Connecticut. His name is Keith Bryan, and he used to, back in the 80s, tour with a band that played Sousa music and had, kind of like historical costumes to go with it. So if you ever want to do a show on Sousa, he's the guy to talk to.
Well, actually, Lily Tyson right now is working on a story about historical reenactors. I don't know whether a historical reenactor of John Philip Sousa's, what she has in mind.
That's exactly what he was.
I'd like to point out that Sousa left a legacy of 136 marches, numerous operettas, and the sousaphone, obviously. It's a large bass tuba whose design he suggested. It's named after him. And he introduced syncopated dance music like ragtime to France and earned American music new respect abroad. That's all in the Mr. Carp clip.
There you go. So that's a lot of things I would have mentioned. My experience with Sousa was at a local university back in the 80s when I was in grad school, and I studied organ, and I took several of his marches and arranged them for the pipe organ, and got very fortunate that someone actually picked up the publication, and Bellin back in the time, which was kind of a big name. So that was like my sole musical feather in my cap that I carry to this day.
Well, it's an excellent feather.
Yeah. So when Sousa released music, he did it for every imaginable group of instruments all at once. Piano four hands for the band, saxophone quartet with violin, whatever. It all came out at once. This guy was a great capitalist, and he knew how to put his music out to the public, and the public loved it. But you asked an interesting question. Is Stars and Stripes his best march? And I would say, arguably, yes. It's nationalistically tied to our hearts. So maybe musically, it's not necessarily a fair statement to say that it is his best.
Right.
But I've worked with other composers, and I'll throw one out there, Nobles of the Mystic Shrine.
That's the name of a march, Nobles of the Mystic Shrine?
Yes, Nobles of the Mystic Shrine.
All right, we're gonna get that march. We're gonna get that march, and we're gonna play it the next time we do Ask or Tell Me Anything. That's the promise I make to you. Also, I feel like what's the best Sousa march is like next year, instead of doing Song of the Summer, let's do what's the Sousa march of the summer instead, and that way we don't have to wade through we don't have to worry about Drake. He's not going to put out a Sousa march. We'll just do what's the Sousa march of the summer. Jot that down, McPants. Let's not forget. Let's put that in the tickler file. Here's Tom from Milford, and then we're going to take a break. Hi, Tom.
Hey there, how you doing? I love your show. I wanted to say that I watched The Nose. I listened to The Nose last Friday and really loved it. Thought it was great. I loved the review of Nope. And on the strength of it, my significant other and I went there to see it in the theater before it left on just this past Saturday, my 68th birthday, where they were doing $3 showings, which was perfect. And I really loved how in the show you did, you had a little shout out to Sheb Wooley's song "Purple People Eater," which they reference in the movie in a very clever way. And now that I've said the word purple, you have to open a.
You did it so well there. All right, that's really great. First of all, props go to Jonathan McPants. He's the person who insisted we do that. We also I was circulating today on Slack this very interesting article about the way movies use the way horror movies use innocent music, and so I used to work with Garrett Condon, and I used to tell him that, like, you could take any sort of nursery rhyme song, any child's lullaby, and have and do a promo for a horror movie that had just kind of a playground swing creaking rustily in the breeze, and in the background you'd hear a child go, "Bye, baby bunting, Daddy's gone hunting, coming to a theater near you," and then you just go, because there's something incredibly spooky about innocent sounding things if they're transposed into a horrifying context. So I don't know how I got into that. Oh, because of Purple People Eater. It was mentioned. Sheb Wooley's Purple People Eater was mentioned in that article. All right, so let's see. I'm opening another envelope. Why did I think this was a good idea? All right, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break. I will at least take a few moments during the break to scrutinize the 4 or 5 clips that are in this Mr. Karp envelope and see if there's one that we need to discuss.
Turn you into a diamond. Just take a look at the mountain that you've been climbing. You're getting closer to all of the stars aligning. Long as you just stay in your lane and don't ever change. Remember that the sun always comes after the rain. Came a hell of a way, did a whole lot of sinning, took a whole lot of faith, and I ended up winning.
All right, we're back, and it's time to say some thank yous. Kat Pastor, that nice young lady that you hear in the the promos, is the technical producer of the show today and pretty much every day. And Jonathan McPants is up here. He is screening phone calls and thinking about old movies that he'd like to rewatch. And that's who's working on the show today. Thanks very much for tuning in yourself. I do have a Mr. Karp clip here in my hand, which I will share with you before the cock crows. But before that, let's just continuing. I like the way the conversation can kind of bridge from one phone call to another. So here's Dan from Middletown. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Colin. So I wanted to call in and give an alternate perspective from Elizabeth, also in Middletown, an alternate Middletonian perspective, if you will. And to her point, maybe it's not the most broad net cast, but when I heard that Jesse Thorne clip that you did, the promo where the guy calls in and says, my favorite thing about the Colin McEnroe show is the host, Jesse Thorne. I have not laughed so hard at a bit, a segment, a commercial in, I don't know, if my entire life, frankly. It was, to me, one of the most comical things I've ever heard, and I applaud you for doing it.
Well, thank you so much. It's actually the one that I like the most, too. And Kat does a great job on that one. There's a mystery voice. I don't think we're allowed to say who the mystery voice is of the kind of this. It's her father. I won't tell you what kind of voice I told Kat to go find, but she immediately decided that it was going to be her father. All right. So meanwhile, I've opened a Mr. Carp envelope because somebody said one of the words that you say, and then I have to open a Mr. Carp envelope. I've actually forgot. I know it's purple or platypus or pineapple, but I've forgotten what the fourth word was. So somebody could say that word, and I wouldn't even know. I made up a rule, and I immediately forgot it. This is pretty interesting. It's about the 18th century British cleric Gilbert White, who encouraged people to see nature not as something that existed out in Golden, Colorado, or in some river remote from humankind, but as sort of woven into the fabric of daily life, which kind of goes back to Mark from Willimantic's earlier call, about that idea of just stepping outside your door and maybe it is you see a cardinal on the feeder, maybe you take a few steps or you just go a short distance and you're on a nice little trail. And so this writer, I don't know what publication this is from, it sort of looks like it might be the Wall Street Journal. Not surprisingly, given his eye for homegrown natural wonders, White has been having something of a moment. An art exhibit and recent companion volume, Drawn to Nature, assembled many of the illustrations used in various versions of his masterwork, The Stubborn Light of Things. Oh, no, that's separately. The Stubborn Light of Things, a popular nature podcast hosted by writer Melissa Harrison, as an armchair travelogue for listeners confined by social distancing, including excerpts from White's journals. So there you go. A little bit from Mr. Carp envelope about Gilbert White. All right, here we go. We're going to move on here. All right, so the number, by the way, we're all at phone calls. So you can definitely get on the air if you call right now. I'm going to take Chuck, and then I will have nobody left to talk to. I can always talk to myself. 888-720-WNPR. 888-720-9677. And here is Chuck from Mystic. Hi, Chuck. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. Love your show. Hey, thanks for picking me up. My question or comment or whatever is the state of Connecticut gives out benefits to, let's say, people when they retire, and that, like healthcare is a perfect example, right? And when people go use their healthcare, they can use it anywhere in the country. Could the state require them to use it within the state borders, therefore recycling any money that it gives out to back in the state, so that we don't lose it? Because I know people that have retired to Florida, and now they're using the healthcare down in Florida.
Right.
Things
So
like that.
the simple answer to that question is no. Certainly not under the present state of things. These are all part of collective bargaining contracts that are negotiated. And, pretty much all of the state employees are represented by a union. It really wouldn't make any sense anyway to give people – I mean, what would make more sense really would be to have a national health care system that was unified enough so that this wasn't even a conversation that would be possible to have. But you're not really giving somebody a benefit if you give them a benefit that they can only exercise within a certain geographical area. And, I mean – I know some of the union negotiators, or I did in the past. There's no way they would throw that one away. So I don't care who gets to be governor or which contract comes open. I don't think that one's on the table. I get what you're saying, but I just don't think it's ever going to work that way. Yeah.
Just an idea.
There are no bad ideas. There are ideas that are never going to happen, which is a completely separate category and into which your idea, I think, probably will be placed. But it's not going to be placed in the bad idea bin, because that's reserved for our ideas, the ideas that we on this show have. We get to have all the bad ideas. All right, here is Carol in Newington. Hi, Carol. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. Quick question. Top 3 things I should see in Kobe, Japan when I'm there with my daughter at the end of the month.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, first of all, the good news about Japan is that, once you're sort of in the south there, and it's, you don't really have to confine yourself to Kobe at all. First of all, let me just tell you, don't even try to eat any Kobe beef. I don't know. You may not even be a beef eater. Anyway,
I wasn't thinking of it.
No, I mean, it's like one thing you should understand about Japan is things are really expensive in Japan. And sometimes things that are even made or produced in Japan are less expensive elsewhere. Like I was,
we're
go
going
ahead.
to Kobe because she's going to school there. So Kobe is the ultimate destination.
Okay. So, I mean, you're really near Kyoto. Go to Kyoto, walk around Kyoto. It's just mind-boggling. You're really, really near Osaka. Everything in Japan is really, really packed together. Once you're there, you realize that their sense of scale and space is very, very different from ours. So something that would be like a store here is like 8 stores.
Okay.
And so towns are very close together. The railroads work really well. They're very complicated because there's a bunch of different kinds of lines and stuff like that. You're going to need a little bit of help with that. But you can go anywhere in the South pretty fast. So I would say, so you can go, I mean, if you're in Kobe, you're practically in Osaka. That would be the airport you're probably going to land in if you're going straight to Kobe. Osaka's great. The Dotonbori section of Osaka is kind of like what you see. I don't know if you have sort of a Blade Runner vision of Japan at night, the Dotonbori area of Osaka would be very satisfying in that way. And then if you can sort of work it out, I don't know, I haven't been in a really long time. I think I was in Japan in 2009, so everything I'm telling you is fantastically out of date. But I will say, the baths are kind of fun. The Japanese, they like these places where you go, and there are all kinds of different baths. Like whirlpools. But like, for example, there's one that has a very this is going to sound like I'm making it up, but I'm not. It has a small electric current that kind of runs through it. You can stick your wobbly ankle, into the water with an electric current running through it. Which I realize you've gone through your entire life trying to avoid getting into a bathtub that someone threw a toaster into. I get that. But this is, I don't know, this is sort of part of their culture. So I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask, but I think the main thing to do is enjoy. It's nothing like go to Nara, go to Kurashiki, go and just let it be what it is. One of the problems with Japan is it's a very, very, very different culture from our own, and a lot of people go there and then they spend the whole time wishing it were more like something that's familiar to them. But you just have to sort of give in to the craziness of it all and just enjoy the craziness of it all, and you'll have a great time. And definitely go out at night. Oh, go to a baseball game. Go to a baseball game. Even if you don't like baseball, go to a baseball game because they're way more fun in Japan.
If I go to a baseball game, can I avoid my husband, Tim?
I don't know. Is he always at the... Oh, you're that. That's who you are. Oh, well, now I know why you're going to Kobe. I get the whole thing now. No, you can't. I get the whole question. I understand so much more about what you're asking me.
I'm going to Kobe to get away from Helmeki for a week.
All right. Yeah. Well, that may not be far enough. You may need to go farther from Japan. You talk to Jeff Bezos. See if you can get a rocket that'll put you into space, and you can really get away from him. All right. So we have to stop there. I was wondering how she knew I was in Kobe. All right. So we have to stop there. Thanks for listening today. This is loads of fun. And thanks to everybody who helped out. And I'm sitting here dazed and confused and alone and afraid in a world I never made.